Hey, how's it going, guys? We're gonna go over the quick little 8 questions that we have to do here for functions homework, and let's get going. I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to do them in two separate methods. Um, there's also going to be a third method that we can do in class on the calculators, and I'll show you then, but don't have one of the calculators here with me. I do have Desmos to use, but yeah, I'm just going to show you how to do it by hand and then show you how to use the online calculator. Most of the questions I will use um, just by hand, but a couple of the calculator ones could be good too. So let's try this out. Here we go. So number one, it says h of x is negative 2x minus 3. G of x is x squared plus 1. And as I was saying in class, it's extraordinarily important to actually understand that language. So you can't say gx is x squared plus 1. It is g of x equals x squared plus 1. We want to be able to use this language correctly, especially, you end up in a college class, you raise your hand, you want to be able to ask a question, in the correct fashion. So using that correct language is key. So it wants us to find h of 5 plus g of 5. So that x right there has become a 5, which means that this x right here will also become a 5. So we're going to go h of 5 is equal to negative 2, but instead of writing an x, I'm going to write a 5. The rest of this is just kind of basic simplification. So negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. Feel free to use a calculator. And negative 10 minus 3 is negative 13. So h of 5 is negative 13. Likewise, we could find g of 5. We're going to go ahead and replace the x here with the 5 instead. So g of 5 is going to be equal to, instead of x squared, we're going to write 5 squared plus 1. Now I'm always using parentheses around the number I'm plugging in. It's a really good idea to get, a good habit to get into. It will really help with negative numbers, getting some of the harder questions correct. 5 squared is 25, and 25 plus 1 is 6. Finally, the question actually wanted h of 5 plus g of 5. So it wanted us to take these guys and this guy and add them together. Negative 13 plus 26 is positive 13. And there you go. That's how you would do one of these entire questions by hand. Let's check out problem number 2. So problem number 2, instead of doing this one by hand, we're going to do the entire question in Desmos instead. So I've already got Desmos open over here. I'm going to go ahead and pop it over to the side of my screen. So there, you're seeing my screen background. My little sister changed it too. Also having an infinite, we'll go back into, but yeah. Anyways, hilarious. That's He-Man if you wanted to know. Um, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Here we go. We're gonna do this graphic calculator. Let's start it up. So we have first we're gonna type in the function just as it appears exactly. So we're gonna type in f of x is equal to negative 2x plus 5. And then we're gonna type in the other one, g of x equals x squared. To get the squared to show up, you need to hit shift and then the number 6, and that's going to make the little 2 pop up there. The other way to get the square to show up is to go over here and hit the squared button. Anyways, then minus 5x. We're going to type them both in as they appear. Desmos is cool because it shows you what the graph actually looks like. So we're going to be learning all about how to make these graphs ourselves by hand and how to do them in our calculators at school and in Desmos later in the year. This one right here is called a linear function that's actually in your packet right now. This one's called a parabolic function, and we have parabolic functions coming up in a couple months. I don't think we're going to do those until about November. But anyways, let's continue on. It wants us to find f of 8 plus g of 8. So we can do it like the last question and figure out that f of 8 is equal to negative 11. So we could say, hey, our f of 8 is negative 11. You kind of notice if I plugged in 8 there, it'd be negative 16 and 5 is negative 11. So that's that idea. We could also do g of 8 equals, where's your negative 11? G of 8 here, that's going to be 24. And the question again asks you to add them together, but Desmos is even better than that. Desmos will do the entire work for you. So I didn't even have to do that g of 8 separately. I could have literally typed in f of 8 plus g of 8, And it would just done it for me. It got me that 13. So that's super duper nice. You can even type in something cool. You can do like f of x plus g of x, and it will show you what the graph added together looks like, which is pretty nifty. All these different colors, and you can do all kinds of fun things with Desmos. And we're going to learn more about that again later in the year. So just so we can practice it one more time, I'm gonna skip to number 4 and then go back to number 3. We'll do this one more of these on Desmos, and then we're gonna do the rest of them by hand, because I really do think practicing them by hand is a good habit to get into. And some students actually just prefer doing it by hand anyways. So this one, we have to type in t's this time. H of t equals negative t, and g of t is negative 2t minus 2. And it wants us to find h of negative 2 minus g of negative 2. And it turns out this is 0. Now, if you notice, there was no work involved in that one. You could have just like copied an answer. Well, deal is you're not going to have Desmos on a test, right? So this is good practice, of course, to use it. But on a test, you're only going to have your calculator at school. So you'll have to use the calculator version of doing this, which is very similar, but not the same. So definitely make sure you ask in class if you need help with that calculator. Not going to do any good to make a video of it either if you're watching this at home, because you're not going to have the calculator. So please definitely be paying attention in class when we do that, so we can do it this way, or minimize this guy, send that guy away. Let's do this next one by hand. So we have g of x is x minus 5. So we're going to do g of 10, it says here. G of 10 is going to be replacing that x there with a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. H of 10, same exact idea. H of 10 is going to be 10 minus 1. 10 minus 1 is 9. And the question wants us to do g of 10 minus h of 10. So it wants us to take this guy right here, this 5, and subtract 9. 5 minus 9 is negative 4. Let's keep the ball rolling. We only have 4 more questions to do. Here we go with number 5. So in number 5, h of n is 2n minus 3. So it wants h of negative 1. So h of negative 1 is going to be 2 multiplied by negative 1 minus 3. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2 minus 3. Negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. Now here is the very first question, or what I said earlier in the problem, where you have to make sure that you're writing these in parentheses for your exponents, comes into play. So when you write g of negative 1, you really need these parentheses, because this is negative 1 squared plus 5 times negative 1. I'm going to run out of room over here. That negative 1 is being squared. So there's a big difference here. Negative 1 squared means negative 1 multiplied by negative 1, whereas negative 1 squared written this way means negative 1 times 1. Notice how there's a different number of negative signs here. So when you have them inside the parentheses, which is what you need, you get 2 negative signs, which makes this a positive 1, whereas the other one would be, a negative 1 if you multiplied it out. So it's really important that you have the parentheses written correctly there. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Plus negative 5 is just minus 5, which gives you negative 7. Again, feel free to use a calculator. And even at school, if you wanted to be maximum lazy with the calculator, you could just plug all of that in together into the calculator. Here, you could do it on Desmos. Either way, definitely make sure you're getting that practice in. And then here, we have to do multiplication, it says. It wants us to do this guy times this guy. Negative 5 times negative 7 is 35. Let's keep the ball rolling. And we're doing h of 1 times g of 1. So yet again, it wants us to plug in just a nice little 1. So h of 1 is going to be 4 times 1 plus 4. G of 1 is going to be negative 2 times 1 minus 2. So if you notice this time I'm working horizontally, you're allowed to do that if you want to. I don't really know why I did that, but 4 times 1 is 4 plus 4 is 8. Negative 2 times 1 minus 2 is negative 4. And you're multiplying these together, you'll get negative 32. We only have 2 more questions to do. It was 1 through 8 was the assignment. We will continue with the remainder of the questions later, but this is like notation I haven't taught you yet. So let's worry about the notation I have taught you. So we got g of n is this guy. So we're going to go ahead and do g of -2 is plugging in that -2 plus 1. -2 plus 1 is -1. Then we have h of -2. H of -2 is going to be, again, careful with these parentheses. You've got to have them in the parentheses because -2 times -2 is 4, not -4. So be very careful. And we're dividing. We're doing this guy here divided by this guy here, so -1/2. And you can just leave it like that. If you want to write it as a fraction or as a decimal, you could easily have done negative 0.5. That would have been acceptable too. Either way is cool to me. Let's continue on. Last question of the day. G of -3. We're going to plug in that -3 where the x is. That means that this x becomes a -3. Again, you got to be careful with those parentheses where you're not going to get this as a +9 like it should be. And that's going to give you 7. And then we're going to have h of -3. H of -3 is going to be 3 multiplied by that -3 plus a 5. That x right there is becoming a -3. That is a -9 plus a 5. That's a -4. And the question wants us to do the g answer divided by the h answer. So 7 over -4. And again, if you want to rewrite this as a decimal, you could. It's -1.75. All right. Anyways, guys, have a wonderful rest of your day or evening or weekend or whatever the heck it is when you're watching this. Peace out. Have a good one. Bye-bye.